Let's talk about the secret air show in 1988.
Norton, yeah, Air Force Base. It's a decommissioned Air Force Base, California, where there was the original ARV that we learned about. Apparently, it had mercury component parts from 1959, 60 time period. And it was sort of a circular object, came up to it like a cupola. You see the drawings we have. And we have a man who was at that air show who described it in full. It had scorch marks and other things on it, and they had been told at this secret air show that it, in fact, had been out in the solar system, out in the space and back. This is late 1950s, early 1960s. Now, ironically, my uncle who worked on the lunar module, put the first man on the moon, that was 1969. So they're working one track at Grumman, which became Northrop Grumman, but then in these deep black projects, they have these things that are zipping out there. And that is 100% true. My understanding, it did not have interstellar capability. It did not have teleportation capability. It didn't have any of that really exotic. But it was a energy, free energy combined with anti-gravity, where they could get that up there and go out into space and other places. So that air show was basically showing some old antique ones, right? This is 1988. This bird was from the late 50s, early 60s. And they had three of them. One was about 25 feet, I believe, 150, and one 100 feet across. Now, Mr. Herrera, by the time he was in, 2009, whenever it was, in Indonesia, that one was 300 feet across, man-made. Think of it. Think of the length of a football field round, floating.
How are you able to tell which one of these are man-made versus ET?
At a great distance, you would know. If you're up close enough, the man-made ones are going to have components, protrusions, electromagnetic often. They're going to be seams, welding marks. Underneath, there could be pipes and other things. It's very clearly a man-made machine. The extraterrestrial ones, seamless. They're extruded in this process of how they create them. Even the light they give off is very different because it's coming through such pure material science, extremely pure materials. And then if you
we're still in the infancy stages we're still in the infancy stages of this compared to.
I'm afraid in 2023, we're certainly not in infancy. We have technologies and material science that are far beyond. Look at what Stephen Digna talked about, that Raytheon device. Out of 1 million people who would have seen or touched that thing, 1 million of them would have said it was extraterrestrial. No one would have thought we had that kind of technology. AI, organic quality to it. That, if you look at his testimony carefully, but that's how they've been getting away with doing the abductions, the quote alien abduction hoax. The way they've been able to do it is have technologies and also creatures that look like they're gray or reptilian or whatever. I know men who've worked on them, actually fabricated them. Those are man-made. And they're used for their psychological warfare purpose. This is one thing I would love to get Dr. Jacques Vallée to release this document he has from 1985. It's a CIA official document, and it describes the CIA conducting abductions, alien abductions in Brazil and Argentina, quote, for their psychological warfare value. Now, this is now, almost 40 years ago, 38 years ago. So those sort of projects, aside from being a crime in any jurisdiction anywhere on the planet, and a crime against humanity, is creating this false flag psychology, the preparation, because people are brainwashed thinking the aliens are mutilating and the aliens are abducting us. They have no need to do that. That's this disinformation campaign using incredibly high-tech technologies that we've studied from the extraterrestrials. So this is one of the real problems, is that a little knowledge is a dangerous thing. And this was my concern when David Grush started talking about an event where, the aliens were murdering people. I'm going, and that went all through Capitol Hill. I'm going, I know that incident. That was us. So people, and I don't think he understands, because he's a young man, the problem of having a little bit of information on this and thinking you know a lot is that you're going to step into a booby trap. And the booby trap is being played by the very unconstitutional criminals that people like him were trying to uncover.
You were working with Grush, correct?
We had met in March of 2022 in Culpeper, Virginia. I was asked to meet with him, and he had a security guy there with him. And I told him, look, I'll cooperate and get you anything you need. And so over about a 14-month period, until he told me he was leaving the U.S. government in April of this year, we would, periodically, occasionally we spoke through an encrypted system. Usually it was encrypted texts. But I have all these.
This is, correct me if I'm wrong, this is the guy that he was just in the news?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And he came out that there was a downed craft. We retrieved it with bodies, correct?
Yes. And those were a lot of this information I was providing to his bosses. And then he was in a field operation to go out and get to places. Now, he never got in to see it firsthand, but he talked to people, of course, that knew about it.
I mean, this actually hit the mainstream media,
oh, yeah.
correct?
Mm-hmm. Yep. So, he's not the principal person I've been dealing with. The principal person would be the equivalent of a 2- or 3-star general if he was still in the military. But I think that, I try, my goal in all of this is that if someone is trying to do this on behalf of the legal government of the United States, I will give them any information I have. But we have a lot. I mean, our repository of intelligence on this by far is the largest in the world, certainly exceeds the legal government of the United States. I will say that for a fact. Now, my concern is that when you go from that to then falling into the clutches of folks in the UFO community, who then start giving you these tall tales of all these horrible things the aliens have been doing, I'm going, yes, but you haven't been read in to that part of the project. So this is like an onion, a stinking onion. You peel 500 layers of this onion back, and there's 500 more. And this is where a little bit of just superficial knowledge is a very dangerous thing, extremely dangerous. And my concern about that is that this is exactly the game that's going to be run on Congress and the White House.
Well, I mean, you're already seeing it. I mean, like I said, look, I don't trust the mainstream media, anyways.
Well, no, they're an asset of this group.
But
absolutely,
a lot of people do, and a lot of people don't put any legitimacy on anything unless Fox News, CNN, MSNBC, ABC, NBC, unless they touch it, nobody.
Right.
I'm not going to say nobody, because there's a growing. The population that doesn't believe in the mainstream media is just continuously getting larger.
It's probably half the population. Yeah.
But why do you think? I mean, that would be the biggest story in the world. Mm-hmm. We've recovered an ET craft with bodies, and on every news network they're all covering it, and then just like that, it's gone. No photos, no nothing. What happened? Why do you think it just disappeared?
Well, we know why. I mean, in 2001, when we did the first National Press Club event, we had a guy who was on a team that, for several years in the 60s, retrieved the bodies and the craft. And he spoke, and he had all of his information there. His name is Sergeant Clifford Stone. He's in our archive. Go look at it. So the people we just had at the National Press Club, a decorated U-2 pilot who encountered these objects back in the 60s, 70s, 80s, worked at the Lockheed operations and skunk work interface with Ben Rich directly, personally. He didn't get to go into that. But these guys are all available to give testimony. These are firsthand. David Grush was secondhand. He never was principally involved. Stephen Digna, was with 2 Raytheon guys with these man-made Raytheon devices. D.C. Long was in an underground facility out on the Range 19 with with some Delta guys took his dad in, who was a contractor, and they accidentally saw this system levitating a 100-ton concrete block up in the air, along with some giant boulders. Absolutely true. And we had people who were, at other operations that we brought. Now, those are all every one of our 750 Disclosure Project folks are firsthand witnesses, meaning that they weren't people trying to find out like David Grush was. They're people who actually were in there. Interesting that the media won't interview them.
It is.
Though, if they really want to know the truth, why would you want to talk to a field operator who didn't have firsthand information and skip over the people who actually touched the things, saw them? You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So the public has to ask the question very quickly. How do we get the truth out? I think we're asking everyone to write their member of Congress and their 2 senators and the White House as an activist responsibility as a citizen of the United States, and refer to the National Press Club event and the Disclosure Project archive, because we've sent all this in, and say, now we need to see action taken. Now, whether the media, the corporate media, I honestly believe is controlled by this same corrupt enterprise.
I mean, Doc, they're definitely controlled. I mean, there's multiple videos of them all reporting the exact same shit. I mean,
Right.
It's ridiculous that anybody even watches it anymore.
Well, I mean, it's staged. And the problem with that, they do have, and this is the other big announcement, if there are any attorneys listening, we now have over 150 attorneys and legal professionals on our legal team. And not only will they protect and defend any whistleblowers and the project, but they also we're moving quickly towards issuing a civilian RICO, Racketeer Influence Corrupt Organization lawsuit. Who are going to be in the target? All these corporations and individuals. You can't use a civilian RICO against a government agency, but you can target the individuals and the corporations. That we are going to be doing in concert with this bill, saying now you need to come out of the cold, or you'll be criminally. We can't criminally prosecute, but there is a U.S. attorney who's on the team that when we find actionable intelligence and get it introduced into court in a civilian RICO, he would then take it and see if he can pursue it under a criminal statute.